So fam, so tonight, what you're going to get, or today, or right now, what you're going to get is just late night rants with Catholic.dad. So, hold on to your boots. Ready? Here we go.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind, drown out the noise, and see if this connected. And see if this connected.
So, welcome back. So, I'm sitting here in the podcast studio pondering, where are all the young people who I have ministered to? And I'm wondering, it's like, yeah, I mean, where are they? I mean, are they living out their faith? Are they leading healthy, faithful lives? And so I'm like, really looking at that and saying, yeah, some. But I do believe most aren't. And it's concerning. I don't know about you, but are you concerned at all? Are you concerned that your children or your friends or the people, the young people in the church are no longer practicing or questioning whether they should go to Mass or whether they should even go to church, or even better, they're going to a different church. They're going to an evangelical church because they find it more appealing to their desires. That, are we people of God saying, well, at least it's a church? So what are we thinking? What are we feeling? And a friend of mine, we had been discussing the success of our catechetical programs and the success of ministry, period, ministry to young Catholics. And, we both came up with the same things that we were saying, yeah, I do question whether we are being effective or not. I mean, I know that ministry that we're doing is very effective at the moment, but is it effective in the long run? Will they be still actively participating the church, the faith, 1 year after high school, 2 years after high school, 4 years after high school? Will they be getting married in the church? Will they be celebrating Mass? Or will they go back to becoming Christmas, Easter only kind of Catholics? Or will they stop going, period? Or can we say, when they go to a different denomination, at least they're going to church? I mean, have we relented to that where we're okay with that? And it's not that these are things that keep me awake, but they are things that make me ponder how we're doing things. Now, in the many books that we've had to read during formation, in the many books that we constantly read, and you guys look at the books I have here, and everything that we have, and all the drama that happens in church and ministry, we always look at that and it's like, are we listening to our young people? Are we looking at best practices? are we actually reviewing our ministries, our the way that we do things? Are we evaluating that at the end of the year and saying to ourselves, what did we do well and what can we do better? Or are we stuck in that same process of, well, it's what we do, it's what we know, and I really don't have time to change anything. It works. I compare that to sometimes when we look at our educational system, and I'm not trying to be political, but recently, in the blogosphere of politics, we see that less than 75% and less than 60% of fourth graders read at grade level. That's shocking. In the United States, the richest, wealthiest country in the world, spending so much money, and our fourth graders can't read at grade level. And you compare that with countries who are impoverished and their fourth graders are reading way above their grade level. That's kind of shocking, and it should waken us up. But let's talk about our faith. Many, not saying all, but we use a model of catechesis that is classroom based. The parents sign them up, they go for catechesis once a week in a classroom with a catechist, quote unquote, the teacher, and they're taught religion. They're taught their basic prayers. They're taught what are the 7 sacraments. They're taught what are the 10 commandments. They're taught social justice. They're taught all these things. But does it stick? They're taught about the Eucharist. But does it stick? They're taught about reconciliation and penance. But does it stick? Do they receive it? Do they have an encounter where it says, yeah, I believe that? And at times I really question that whole classroom model. I'm not saying, need to throw that out. There are definitely some benefits to that. But in a discussion with a friend and reading some books, I think there is a point where we look at this and say, I think we could do better. We just had that synod on synodality where we were supposed to be listening. I say supposedly listening, and I can go on another tangent on that, on how synod on synodality was another failure. Because I don't think we were actually listening, and I don't think we were actually speaking to people who wanted to say something. But we'll do that in another episode. But here, just touching a little bit on this topic is our catechetical program working? And let's put it this way. How do we define working? Working means, are they coming back? And what's the percentage of them actually living out their faith? I mean, is it they're not because our programming is poor? Is it because, as some people say, well, now you just have regular people teaching, no longer the nuns are teaching catechesis? I don't know. And people say, oh, there's so many things out there that they're pulled into. And we're so stuck in the old ways. Well, I don't know. What is it? My friend and I were talking, and we're saying, maybe we're looking at this backwards. And I'm going to float this out there. And maybe we're looking at it in a wrong way, where we're actually trying to catechize the children and not the family. Let me say that again. We're simply just trying to catechize the children and not the family. Now, I'm speaking with catechists out there and people who are doing ministry, people in the vineyard. I want to ask you, how many children have you had, whether they be in first, second, third grade to high school, who did not even know the basic prayers of the Our Father, the Hail Marys, the Glory Be? And I think majority of you will say, yeah, we're having to teach that. I mean, listen to that. We're having to teach that. It's almost like going to a third grade class and fourth grade class and saying, do you know your ABCs, and having to teach that. It floors me. It floors me that maybe our classroom model isn't working. And maybe it's a time to really look at that and say, honestly, let's look at how to do that better. Not for programming's sake, not for our sake, but for the sake of the church. So how can we do that? And I think there's an answer for that. You know, in the Bible, I think I read it earlier today. I think Jesus gave us the answer. In the last chapter of John, I think Jesus gave us the answer to that. And it's in chapter 21 of the Gospel of John, where Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? And stick with me here. Jesus said to Peter, do you love me? 3 times. And of course Peter said, yes, Lord, I love you. And Jesus told him these 3 things. He said, feed my lambs, tend my sheep, and feed my sheep. Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, and feed my sheep. Did you hear that? Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, and feed my sheep. It's interesting when you hear that, because who are the sheep and who are the lambs? And I think that may be our answer. Because sheep feed lambs. Sheep feed the lambs. Well, listen to this comparison. In our catechetical model, classroom model, we spend majority of the time catechizing and trying to feed lambs for an hour a week that we spend with them. Sometimes an hour and a half. We're feeding the lambs. And yet the sheep, the parents, drop them off. And in this model, 2/3 of the time, Jesus said, feed my sheep, tend my sheep. We're supposed to tend the sheep, and the sheep can feed lambs. I mean, we're there to also feed the lambs, but we're supposed to spend most of our time with the sheep, aka the parents. So maybe this is a paradigm shift, and maybe I'm speaking to myself, maybe some of you who are doing catechetical work are hearing this and nodding your head and say, yeah, we need to invest more time in evangelizing the parents so that they can then share with their children. We always look at this, and we always say this, and it just, makes me cringe every time I hear this from catechists and DREs who say, The parents are the primary catechists. But here's the problem with that. How can they be if they haven't been fed? What are they going to teach them? So I'm just floating this out there. Maybe we can have this discussion later, and maybe you can state in the comments what your thoughts are. Share in the comments what your thoughts are. Maybe we spend more time with the entire family, starting with the parents, and helping them tend sheep. Not with once a month parent meetings where we're teaching them everything but what the kids are learning, but actually inviting them to be a part of the process. Let's talk about that. Let's get into a conversation on how we can make this paradigm shift. I mean, it's not throwing everything out, but maybe, just maybe, let's start 1 year at a time and slowly wean ourselves out from just the basic classroom model and actually inviting them into an encounter with Christ through community, through parents, family, and children, so that we can tend our sheep, feed our sheep, and feed our lambs. What do you think? Let's talk about that. So on that note, thanks for listening to my midnight rant, moments when Catholic.Dad can't sleep and ideas goes in his head and he needs to share it. So if you have any comments, complaints, concerns, email me at catholic.dad50@gmail.com or DM me on my Instagram, catholic.dad or thisconnected. And if you want to support this podcast, check us out in our bio on our Instagram page. Become a sponsor in our Patreon or just become a sponsor. Everything that we provide is of benefit, we pray, to our faith community. So, on that note, please pray for each other. Pray for me. Pray for us. And as always, live a life of holiness. Be blessed and be third. See you on the next episode. God bless.